Picture this: a 17-year-old girl standing frozen in horror as her torn hoodie hangs in shreds, exposed and humiliated while a crowd of teenagers records her shame on their phones. But what these bullies didn't know was that beneath those baggy clothes lived the lightning-fast reflexes of a judo champion, and in mere seconds, their world would be turned completely upside down in the most spectacular way imaginable. This is the incredible story of Maya Chen, a quiet artist whose hidden martial arts mastery would deliver the most satisfying justice you've ever witnessed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn air in Millbrook, Oregon carried the scent of fallen leaves and fresh rain as students hurried through the corridors of Riverside High School. This wasn't the sprawling urban campus you might imagine from movies, but rather a modest brick building that had served the small town for over 4 decades. The hallways buzzed with the familiar symphony of teenage life, sneakers squeaking against polished linoleum, locker doors slamming shut, and the constant hum of conversation that seemed to echo from every corner. Riverside High was home to just over 800 students, a mix of kids from farming families, suburban developments, and a handful of apartment complexes that dotted Pine Street on the less affluent side of town. Within these walls existed an invisible but rigid social hierarchy that every student understood instinctively. At the top sat the athletes, the children of successful business owners, and those blessed with the perfect combination of good looks and social media savvy. Below them were the various tribes of theater kids, honor roll students, and musicians who carved out their own respected niches. And somewhere near the bottom, almost invisible to most of their peers, existed students like Maya Chen. Maya moved through Riverside High like a ghost, her petite frame swimming in oversized hoodies that she pulled tight around herself like armor. Her straight black hair fell in a curtain across her face, creating a barrier between herself and the world that seemed determined to overlook her existence. At 17, she had perfected the art of invisibility, choosing seats in the back corner of classrooms, eating lunch alone while sketching in her notebook, and timing her movements between classes to avoid the heaviest crowds. To most of her classmates, Maya was simply part of the background, another quiet Asian girl who kept her head down and her mouth shut. But Maya's invisibility wasn't born from lack of personality or intelligence. Hidden in her backpack were dozens of detailed manga-style drawings that showcased an artistic talent that would have stunned anyone lucky enough to see them. Her sketches brought to life fierce warriors, graceful dancers, and fantastical creatures with an attention to detail that spoke of countless hours of dedicated practice. Art was Maya's escape, her way of expressing all the thoughts and feelings she kept locked inside during her silent journey through high school's social minefield. At home in the small apartment above Chun's laundromat on Pine Street, Maya lived with her mother Linda, a woman whose weathered hands and tired eyes told the story of endless double shifts cleaning hotel rooms across town. Linda Chun had immigrated from Taiwan in her 20s, full of dreams that had been gradually worn down by the reality of raising a daughter alone after her husband David's death 4 years earlier. She spoke to Maya in a mixture of Mandarin and heavily accented English, always emphasizing the importance of education, hard work, and staying out of trouble. The apartment was cramped but clean, with photographs of David Chun covering nearly every surface. He had been a gentle man with calloused hands and a warm smile, someone who had found joy in the simple pleasures of teaching his daughter to appreciate both art and the ancient discipline of judo. In the corner of Maya's small bedroom sat a wooden shelf holding his old GI, carefully folded and preserved like a sacred relic. Next to it were trophies and medals from his competitive days, back when he had been known throughout the Pacific Northwest as one of the most skilled judoka of his generation. 3 times a week, Maya would slip away from school and walk the 6 blocks to the Millbrook Community Center, an aging brick building that housed everything from senior citizen yoga classes to after-school programs for elementary students. On the second floor, in a room that smelled of decades of sweat and determination, Sensei Rodriguez ran a small but dedicated judo program. Miguel Rodriguez was a former Marine whose own journey into martial arts had begun as a way to channel anger and find purpose after returning from overseas. He was a compact man with graying temples and hands that moved with the precise economy of someone who had spent decades perfecting his craft. Maya had been training with Sensei Rodriguez since she was 13, just months after her father's funeral. Linda had initially resisted the idea, worried about the cost and concerned that martial arts might make her daughter more likely to get into fights at school. But Maya had begged, explaining that judo was her last connection to her father's memory, and eventually Linda had relented. What she didn't realize was that Maya possessed a natural talent that took even Sensei Rodriguez by surprise. Within 2 years, Maya had earned her brown belt, moving through the ranks with a combination of technical precision and intuitive understanding that reminded her sensei of fighters he had known in the military. She absorbed techniques like a sponge, her small frame perfectly suited to judo's emphasis on using an opponent's size and momentum against them. During practice sessions, she could throw men twice her weight with throws that looked effortless, but required perfect timing and placement. Yet Maya never spoke about her training at school, honoring both her father's memory and her own preference for keeping her two worlds completely separate. The trouble that would change everything began on a gray Thursday in November, just as the lunch period was ending and students were making their way to fifth period classes. Maya had spent her lunch break in the art room, working on a detailed drawing of a phoenix rising from flames, when she realized she needed to grab her chemistry textbook from her locker before class. The science wing was located on the far side of the building, and Maya knew she would have to hurry to avoid being late. As she approached her locker, Maya noticed that the hallway was more crowded than usual. A group of senior girls had gathered near the water fountain, their voices carrying that particular pitch that suggested drama was unfolding. At the center of the group stood Jessica Martinez, Riverside High's unofficial queen bee, and a young woman whose carefully curated Instagram account had garnered her over 15,000 followers. Jessica was everything Maya was not: tall, confident, perfectly put together, and seemingly incapable of moving through the world without drawing attention. Jessica's long dark hair cascaded over her shoulders in waves that looked effortless, but probably required an hour of styling each morning. Her makeup was applied with professional precision, highlighting cheekbones that could have graced magazine covers and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and carefully controlled ambition. She wore the latest fashions with the casual confidence of someone whose family's successful real estate business meant money was never a concern. More importantly, Jessica possessed that indefinable quality that made other students gravitate toward her, seeking her approval and fearing her disapproval in equal measure. Standing beside Jessica were her two constant companions, Ashley Thompson and Madison Clark. Ashley was tall and blonde, with the kind of natural athleticism that had made her a star on the volleyball team. She served as Jessica's photographer and social media manager, always ready with a phone to capture the perfect moment for Instagram stories. Madison was shorter and more aggressive, with a sharp tongue and an apparent talent for starting rumors that could destroy reputations overnight. Together, the three girls formed a triumvirate that ruled Riverside High's social scene with subtle but absolute authority. Maya had managed to avoid their attention for 3 years, a feat that required careful planning and constant vigilance. She knew their schedules, understood their territories, and had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when they were approaching so she could disappear into the nearest bathroom or empty classroom. But on this particular Thursday, her timing was off, and as she fumbled with her combination lock, she became aware of a shift in the hallway's energy. The conversation by the water fountain had stopped, and Maya could feel eyes on her back like a physical weight. She tried to ignore the sensation, focusing on the numbers of her combination, but her fingers were trembling slightly, making the simple task more difficult than it should have been. Behind her, she heard the distinctive sound of heels clicking against linoleum, growing closer with each step. Jessica Martinez had indeed noticed Maya, but not for any reason the quiet girl could have anticipated. 2 weeks earlier, at a house party Maya had never attended, Jessica's on and off boyfriend Tyler had made what he probably thought was an innocent comment about the cute Asian girl in his chemistry class who was always drawing cool stuff. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The comment had been forgotten by everyone except Jessica, whose finely tuned radar for potential threats had immediately locked onto this previously invisible rival. Jessica's interest in Maya had grown when she discovered that Tyler had been following Maya's sparse Instagram account, which featured only her artwork and had fewer than 50 followers. The drawings were undeniably impressive, showing a level of talent that Jessica, despite her many advantages, could never hope to match. Worse still, they revealed a depth and creativity that made Jessica's own carefully staged photos seem shallow and manufactured by comparison. For 2 weeks, Jessica had been looking for an opportunity to assert her dominance and remind everyone at Riverside High exactly where Maya belonged in the social hierarchy. She had made subtle inquiries, learning about Maya's family situation, her mother's job, and their modest living circumstances. She had observed Maya's routines, noting her tendency to avoid conflict and her apparent lack of any social support system. In Jessica's calculation, Maya was the perfect target, vulnerable, isolated, and unlikely to fight back in any meaningful way. As Maya finally managed to open her locker, she heard Jessica's voice directly behind her, sweet and innocent in a way that immediately set off alarm bells. "Oh my God, Maya, right? I love your hoodie. Is it vintage?" The question was delivered with perfect intonation, sounding genuinely friendly to any teacher who might be listening while carrying an unmistakable undertone of mockery that every teenager in the hallway would recognize instantly. Maya's shoulders tensed, and she turned slowly to face Jessica, Ashley, and Madison, who had arranged themselves in a semicircle that effectively trapped her against the lockers. "It's just old," Maya replied quietly, her voice barely audible over the sounds of students hurrying to class. "Old is so trendy right now," Jessica continued, her smile never wavering. "Where do you shop?" "I'm always looking for new places to find unique pieces." Ashley giggled at the question, raising her phone slightly as if she might be recording the interaction for social media. Madison stepped closer, her eyes scanning Maya from head to toe with unconcealed disdain. Maya could feel her heart rate increasing, her body's fight-or-flight response beginning to activate even though she couldn't yet understand exactly what was happening. "I need to get to class," Maya said, attempting to close her locker and escape the situation. "Wait, don't go yet," Jessica said, reaching out to place a hand on Maya's arm. "I'm being serious about your style. That whole mysterious artistic vibe is really working for you. But you know what? I bet you're hiding something really amazing under that huge hoodie." The words seemed innocent enough, but Maya could hear the predatory undertone that made her skin crawl. She tried to pull away from Jessica's grip, but the taller girl's fingers tightened around her arm. "Let me see what you're working with," Jessica said, her voice dropping the pretense of friendliness. "Come on, don't be shy." Before Maya could react, Jessica's free hand shot out and grabbed the bottom hem of Maya's hoodie. With a sharp, vicious yank, she pulled upward, causing the oversized garment to ride up and expose Maya's plain white t-shirt and the pale skin of her midriff. But Jessica wasn't finished. As Maya struggled to pull her hoodie back down, Jessica grabbed the neckline and pulled in the opposite direction. The sound of tearing fabric seemed to echo through the hallway like a gunshot. Maya's hoodie, which had been worn thin by years of washing, couldn't withstand the sudden stress and tore almost completely in half, hanging from her shoulders in ragged strips that left her t-shirt and bra visible to everyone in the crowded corridor. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Students stopped in their tracks, some gasping in shock while others immediately pulled out their phones to record Maya's humiliation. Ashley's camera was already rolling, capturing every second of Maya's exposure and embarrassment for posterity. Madison laughed out loud, a harsh sound that seemed to give permission for others to join in. "Oops," Jessica said with mock concern, her eyes bright with satisfaction. "I'm so sorry, Maya. I didn't mean to be so rough. But hey, at least now everyone can see that you do have a body under all those baggy clothes." Maya stood frozen, her hands desperately trying to hold the torn pieces of her hoodie together, while her face burned with shame and humiliation. Around her, she could hear whispers and giggles, the sound of phones clicking as photos were taken, and videos were recorded. She wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from what felt like the worst nightmare of her life. But as she stood there, exposed and humiliated in front of what felt like the entire school, something else began to stir inside Maya Chen. It started as a small flame of anger, burning somewhere deep in her chest, but it quickly grew into something much larger and more powerful. She could hear her father's voice in her memory, speaking words he had repeated countless times during their training sessions together. "Judo is not about being the strongest or the biggest," David Chen had told his daughter years earlier as they practiced throws in their small living room. "It's about balance, timing, and using your opponent's energy against them. But most importantly, Judo teaches us when to fight and when to walk away. Never use your skills in anger, Maya, but if someone tries to harm you or humiliate you, then you have my permission to show them what you're truly capable of." Standing in that hallway, with pieces of her torn hoodie hanging from her shoulders and the laughter of her classmates ringing in her ears, Maya Chen made a decision that would change everything. She was done being invisible. She was done being a victim. And Jessica Martinez was about to learn that she had picked the wrong target for her cruelty. The transformation wasn't visible at first. To the casual observer, Maya still looked like the same quiet, vulnerable girl who had been victimized just moments earlier. But anyone who knew what to look for would have noticed the subtle shift in her posture, the way her weight settled slightly forward onto the balls of her feet, and the calm that suddenly descended over her features like a mask. "Jessica," Maya sighed, her voice quiet but carrying clearly through the hallway, "you need to apologize." The request caught everyone off guard. Jessica, who had been basking in the success of her public humiliation, looked genuinely surprised that Maya had found the courage to speak at all. "Excuse me?" Jessica replied, her voice dripping with disdain. "I think you might be confused about how this works, Maya. You don't get to make demands." "I said you need to apologize," Maya repeated, taking a small step forward. "For what you just did. For embarrassing me in front of everyone. You crossed a line." Ashley and Madison exchanged glances, sensing that something unexpected was happening but not yet understanding what it might be. Several students had formed a loose circle around the confrontation, their phones still recording what they assumed would be Maya's further humiliation. Jessica laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Or what? You'll cry harder? Run to your mommy? Face it, Maya, you're nobody here. You don't have friends, you don't have status, and you definitely don't have the power to make me do anything I don't want to do." As if to emphasize her point, Jessica reached out again, this time aiming to push Maya backward against the lockers in a gesture designed to demonstrate her physical dominance. It was exactly the move Maya had been waiting for. What happened next unfolded so quickly that most witnesses would later struggle to describe it accurately. As Jessica's hand moved toward her shoulder, Maya's body seemed to flow like water, stepping slightly to the side while her hands moved with practiced precision. She caught Jessica's extended wrist with her left hand while her right hand found Jessica's elbow, and suddenly the taller girl's own momentum was being redirected in a way that sent her completely off balance. Maya's hip thrust forward as she pivoted, using a textbook Seoi Nade shoulder throw that would have made Sensei Rodriguez proud. Jessica's feet left the ground as she sailed over Maya's shoulder, her body rotating through the air before crashing onto the linoleum floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent hallway. For a moment, nobody moved. Jessica lay sprawled on the floor, her perfect hair disheveled and her face a mask of shock and disbelief. The students who had been laughing just seconds earlier now stood in stunned silence, their phones still recording, but their minds struggling to process what they had just witnessed. But Maya wasn't finished. Ashley, loyal to the end, had immediately rushed forward to help her fallen friend, but her movement brought her within range of Maya's reach. The tall blonde girl found herself caught in a perfectly executed tai otoshi body drop that sent her tumbling into a nearby trash can with a crash that scattered papers across the floor. Madison, seeing her two friends defeated in a matter of seconds, made the mistake of trying to grab Maya from behind. Maya sensed the movement without even turning around, stepping backward and using Madison's own momentum to execute a beautiful yuki-goshi floating hip throw that deposited the shorter girl next to her companions on the cold floor. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 30 seconds, but its impact would reverberate through Riverside High for months to come. Maya stood in the center of the hallway, her breathing steady and controlled, surrounded by the three girls who had tormented her and dozens of her classmates who now looked at her with a mixture of awe and fear. For the first time in her 3 years at Riverside High, Maya Chen was no longer invisible. The quiet artist had revealed herself to be something far more dangerous and impressive than anyone could have imagined. And as the first bell rang, signaling that students should be in their classrooms, Maya calmly picked up her chemistry textbook, wrapped the remains of her torn hoodie around her shoulders, and walked toward class as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. Behind her, Jessica Martinez struggled to her feet, her face burning with humiliation and rage, already planning her revenge against the girl who had dared to challenge the natural order of Riverside High. But Maya was no longer the same frightened, invisible student who had opened her locker just minutes earlier. She had made her choice, revealed her secret, and there would be no going back to the shadows now. Within minutes of the hallway confrontation, the video footage began spreading through Riverside High like wildfire. Ashley's phone had captured every second of Jessica's humiliation, and despite her loyalty to her fallen friend, the footage was simply too dramatic not to share. The video showed Maya's incredible throws from multiple angles, as other students had also been recording, creating a comprehensive documentation of what many were already calling the most shocking moment in Riverside High history. By the end of fifth period, the video had been uploaded to Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat with captions like "Quiet Girl Goes Savage" and "Don't Mess with Maya." The footage quality was surprisingly good, clearly showing Jessica's aggressive grab of Maya's hoodie, the tearing of the fabric, and then Maya's lightning-fast response that had left 3 of the school's most popular girls sprawled across the hallway floor. The contrast was striking, Maya's calm, controlled movements against Jessica's wild flailing as she sailed through the air. The reaction among students was immediate and polarized. Maya's chemistry class buzzed with whispered conversations as she slipped in just before the final bell, her torn hoodie now covered by an oversized jacket she had borrowed from the lost and found. Some students stared at her with newfound respect, while others seemed almost afraid to make eye contact. Tyler Davidson, the boy whose innocent comment had started this entire chain of events, kept glancing over at Maya with a mixture of admiration and concern that made her stomach flutter in unexpected ways. Meanwhile, Jessica had retreated too, the nurse's office with complaints of a sore back and bruised pride. She spent the remainder of the school day plotting her revenge while Ashley and Madison sat beside her, their own dignity equally wounded. The nurse, Mrs. Patterson, was a kindly woman in her 60s who had seen decades of teenage drama unfold in her small office. She applied ice packs and offered sympathy, but she had also seen the video footage that was already circulating among the faculty, and she couldn't help but feel that Jessica had gotten exactly what she deserved. Principal Williams, a tall man with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses, found himself in an impossible position. The video clearly showed Jessica as the aggressor, tearing Maya's clothing in what could easily be classified as assault. However, Maya's response, while technically self-defense, had been so swift and devastating that it raised questions about whether the force used was proportional to the threat. More concerning was the growing social media attention the incident was receiving, with shares and comments multiplying by the hour. The principal had been dealing with Jessica Martinez and her family for 4 years, and he knew that her father, Roberto Martinez, was not a man who accepted defeat gracefully. Roberto owned the largest real estate development company in Millbrook and had significant influence with the school board. He was also known for his quick temper and his willingness to use his wealth and connections to solve problems that his daughter might encounter. Principal Williams could already imagine the phone call that would be coming, and he dreaded the political pressure that would follow. As the final bell rang and students began filing out of Riverside High, Maya found herself walking through hallways that felt completely different than they had that morning. Students who had never acknowledged her existence before now stepped aside to let her pass, some with expressions of respect, others with barely concealed fear. She overheard fragments of conversations that sent chills down her spine. "Did you see how fast she moved? And I heard she's been training for years, and I'm never messing with her again." The attention was overwhelming for someone who had spent 3 years perfecting the art of invisibility. Maya clutched her backpack tighter and walked faster, desperate to escape the weight of all those watching eyes. She had revealed her secret, crossed a line that she could never uncross, and now she wasn't sure if she had won a victory or made the biggest mistake of her life. Alex Kim was waiting by Maya's locker when she arrived to collect her remaining books. Alex was Maya's only real friend at Riverside High, a fellow quiet student who shared her love of art and fantasy novels. He was a tall, lanky Korean-American boy with thick-rimmed glasses and an encyclopedic knowledge of video games that made him valuable to other students when they needed help with computer problems, but otherwise left him just as invisible as Maya had been. "Maya," Alex said, his voice filled with concern and excitement. "Everyone's talking about what happened. Are you okay? I saw the video, and it was incredible, but Jessica's friends are already spreading rumors about you being violent and dangerous." Maya leaned against her locker, suddenly feeling exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was beginning to wear off, leaving her shaky and uncertain. "I don't know if I did the right thing, Alex. My father always taught me that judo should only be used as a last resort, and now everyone's going to think I'm some kind of fighter looking for trouble. Are you kidding?" Alex replied, his eyes bright with admiration. "You stood up to Jessica Martinez and her crew. Do you know how many people have wanted to see that happen? You're already becoming like a folk hero online. The video has thousands of views, and most of the comments are supporting you." As if to prove his point, Alex pulled out his phone and showed Maya the growing collection of social media posts about the incident. The hashtag Judo Maya was already trending locally, with students from other schools in the district sharing the video and commenting on Jessica's comeuppance. Many of the posts included messages of support for Maya, praising her for standing up to bullying and refusing to be victimized. But not all of the attention was positive. Maya could see posts from Jessica's friends and supporters painting her as an unstable, violent student who had attacked 3 innocent girls without provocation. Some comments suggested that Maya was dangerous and should be expelled from school. Others made crude jokes about her appearance and her family's financial situation. The online battle lines were being drawn, and Maya found herself at the center of a controversy she had never wanted. The walk home to Pine Street felt longer than usual, with Maya's mind racing through all the possible consequences of her actions. She knew that her mother would be finishing her shift at the hotel soon, and she dreaded having to explain what had happened. Linda Chen had always emphasized the importance of staying out of trouble, of keeping her head down and focusing on her studies so that she could earn a scholarship to art school and escape the limitations of their small-town life. The apartment above the laundromat felt smaller than ever as Maya climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor. She could hear the constant rumble of washing machines and dryers below, a sound that had provided the soundtrack to her entire childhood. Their small living space was neat and clean despite its size, with Linda's careful attention to detail evident in every corner. The walls were covered with Maya's artwork, drawings that her mother had proudly framed and displayed even though they couldn't afford professional matting or expensive frames. Maya sat at the small kitchen table and tried to focus on her homework, but her mind kept replaying the events of the afternoon. She could still feel the satisfying contact of Jessica's wrist in her grip, the perfect timing of the throw that had sent her tormentor sailing through the air. Part of her felt proud of what she had accomplished, but another part worried about what her father would have thought of her actions. David Chen had been a gentle man who had competed in judo because he loved the art and the discipline it required, not because he enjoyed fighting or hurting others. He had taught Maya that true strength came from self-control, from knowing when to fight and when to walk away. Had she honored his memory by defending herself, or had she betrayed his teachings by using violence to solve her problems? The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted Maya's troubled thoughts, and she looked up to see her mother entering the apartment. Linda Chen looked tired after another long day of cleaning hotel rooms, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and her uniform wrinkled from hours of hard work. She carried a plastic bag containing their dinner, takeout from the Chinese restaurant down the street that had become their routine on days when Linda worked late shifts. "How was school today?" Linda asked in Mandarin, the language they always used at home. She began unpacking containers of rice and vegetables, not yet noticing the tension in her daughter's posture or the torn hoodie that Maya had hidden in her backpack. Maya hesitated, knowing that once she told her mother what had happened, everything would change. Linda had worked so hard to provide for them after David's death, taking on extra shifts and saving every penny so that Maya could have opportunities that she herself had never enjoyed. The last thing Maya wanted was to jeopardize her future with disciplinary problems that might affect her chances at college scholarships. "There was an incident at school," Maya said carefully, switching to English as she often did when discussing difficult topics. "Some girls were bothering me, and I had to defend myself." Linda's hands stilled as she sensed the seriousness in her daughter's tone. She turned to face Maya fully, her dark eyes searching her daughter's face for signs of injury or distress. "What kind of incident? Are you hurt? Do I need to call the school?" Maya pulled out her phone and showed her mother the video that was still spreading across social media. She watched Linda's expression change from concern to shock to something that might have been pride as she witnessed Maya's perfect throws and the decisive way she had handled her attackers. When the video ended, Linda was quiet for a long moment, processing what she had seen. "Your father would be proud," Linda said finally, her voice soft with emotion. "You used his teachings to protect yourself, just as he always hoped you would be able to do. But Maya, this is going to bring attention that we might not want. There will be consequences." As if summoned by her words, Linda's phone began ringing. The caller ID showed the number for Riverside High School and both women. knew that their quiet evening was about to be disrupted. Linda answered the call with resignation, speaking to Principal Williams in carefully measured English while Maya listened to one side of a conversation that would determine her immediate future. The principal was polite but firm. There would need to be a meeting first thing Monday morning to discuss the incident and determine appropriate disciplinary action. While the video clearly showed that Jessica had been the aggressor, Maya's response had been so disproportionately effective that the school was concerned about liability issues and the message it might send to other students about resolving conflicts through violence. After the call ended, Linda sat heavily at the kitchen table, suddenly looking older than her 42 years. She had immigrated to America with dreams of a better life for her family, but those dreams had been complicated by her husband's death and the daily struggle to make ends meet in a town where opportunities were limited. Now her daughter's moment of self-defense might threaten the carefully constructed plans they had made for Maya's future. "We'll figure this out," Linda said, reaching across the table to squeeze Maya's hand. "Your father taught you those skills for a reason, and you used them when you had no other choice. We'll face whatever comes next together." That evening, as Maya tried to focus on her art homework, her phone buzzed constantly with messages from classmates who had never spoken to her before. Some offered support and congratulations, while others warned her about Jessica's plans for revenge. The attention was overwhelming for someone who had spent years avoiding notice, and Maya found herself longing for the invisible existence she had left behind in that hallway. But there was no going back now. The video had been shared hundreds of times, and Maya's face was becoming recognizable to students throughout the district. She had stepped out of the shadows and into a spotlight that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Whatever happened next, Maya Chen was no longer the quiet, invisible girl who could disappear into the background whenever trouble appeared. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Linda had called in favors to arrange coverage for her weekend shifts so that she could spend time helping Maya prepare for Monday's meeting with Principal Williams. They discussed possible outcomes, from suspension to expulsion, and began researching alternative educational options in case Maya was forced to leave Riverside High. Maya spent hours at the community center with Sensei Rodriguez working through kata and practicing throws with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Her instructor could sense the turmoil in his student and offered quiet guidance about the responsibility that came with martial arts skills. He reminded Maya that her father had always emphasized the importance of using strength to protect others, not to seek revenge or prove superiority. "You did what you had to do," Sensei Rodriguez told Maya as they finished a particularly grueling training session. "Your father would understand. But now you need to be prepared for the consequences of revealing what you're capable of. There are people who will fear your abilities, and others who will want to test them. You must be ready for both." As Sunday evening approached, Maya felt a mixture of dread and determination settling in her stomach. Tomorrow would bring her first real test of how much her life had changed since that moment in the hallway when she had decided to stop being a victim. She had revealed her hidden strength, but now she would discover whether that revelation would lead to freedom or to new forms of imprisonment. The community center dojo felt like a sanctuary as Maya went through her final practice session before Monday's reckoning. Each throw, each movement, each breath connected her to her father's memory and to the discipline he had instilled in her. She was no longer just the quiet artist who hid in the shadows. She was David Chun's daughter, a judoka, and someone who had finally found the courage to stand up for herself. But as Maya walked home through the darkening streets of Millbrook, she couldn't shake the feeling that her real challenges were just beginning. Jessica Martinez was not someone who accepted defeat gracefully, and her family's influence in the community meant that Maya's victory in the hallway might prove to be temporary. The video had made her famous, but fame was a double-edged sword that could cut both ways. Monday morning would bring answers, but it would also bring new questions about who Maya Chen was becoming and what price she would pay for refusing to remain invisible any longer. The shy girl was gone, replaced by someone stronger, but also more vulnerable to the complexities of a world that didn't always reward those who stood up for themselves. Maya climbed the stairs to her apartment, her mind already racing through possible scenarios for tomorrow's meeting. Whatever happened, she knew that she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. She had revealed her true capabilities, and now she would have to live with the consequences of that revelation, both good and bad. The quiet artist had become something more complex and dangerous, and the entire community of Millbrook was about to discover what that transformation might mean for everyone involved. Maya's story was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray drizzle that seemed to seep into every corner of Millbrook, turning the small-town streets into reflective mirrors that caught the pale light filtering through heavy clouds. Maya had barely slept, her mind cycling through endless scenarios of what might happen during her meeting with Principal Williams. She had risen before dawn to practice her forms in the cramped living room, moving through the familiar patterns that helped center her thoughts and calm her racing heart. Linda had arranged to take the morning off from her hotel job, a luxury they could barely afford, but one that felt necessary given the circumstances. She sat across from Maya at their small kitchen table, both of them picking at breakfast neither really wanted to eat. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken fears about Maya's future, about college applications that might be jeopardized, about scholarship opportunities that could disappear if this incident escalated beyond their control. The walk to Riverside High felt different than any Maya had taken before. Students she passed on the sidewalk recognized her now, some offering supportive nods while others whispered to their friends and pointed in her direction. The video of her confrontation with Jessica had continued spreading over the weekend, reaching students from neighboring schools and even catching the attention of local news outlets who were always hungry for content that might generate clicks and views. Maya's phone had been buzzing constantly with friend requests from strangers, messages from reporters seeking interviews, and comments from people she had never met offering everything from praise to condemnation. She had turned off notifications after the 100th ping, but she could still feel the weight of all that attention pressing down on her like a physical force. The main office at Riverside High buzzed with nervous energy as Maya and Linda were directed to uncomfortable plastic chairs outside Principal Williams' office. Secretary Mrs. Henderson, a woman who had worked at the school for over 20 years, offered them coffee with the kind of forced politeness that suggested she was well aware of the political complexity surrounding Maya's situation. Through the thin walls, they could hear raised voices as Principal Williams dealt with what sounded like an angry phone call. Jessica Martinez had not come to school that morning, claiming she was too traumatized by the assault to face her classmates. Her absence was tactical, Maya realized, designed to emphasize her victim status while allowing her father, Roberto Martinez, to work behind the scenes to control the narrative. Maya had learned over the weekend that Roberto was not only influential in local business circles, but also served on several school board committees, giving him direct access to the people who would ultimately decide Maya's fate. When Principal Williams finally called them into his office, Maya was struck by how tired and stressed the man looked. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled and his tie slightly askew. Papers covered his desk and unorganized piles, and his computer screen showed multiple browser tabs open to social media sites and local news sources. This was clearly a man who had spent his weekend trying to manage a crisis that was growing beyond his ability to control. "Maya, Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming in," Principal Williams began, his voice carefully neutral. "I'm sure you understand that we need to discuss the incident that occurred last Thursday and determine the appropriate response from the school's perspective." Linda leaned forward slightly, her English careful but determined. My daughter was defending herself from an attack. The video shows this clearly. She did nothing wrong. I understand your position, Mrs. Chen, and I want you to know that the video evidence has been very helpful in our investigation, the principal replied. We can clearly see that Jessica Martinez was the initial aggressor, and that Maya's response appears to have been defensive in nature. However, the level of force displayed and the martial arts skills that Maya demonstrated raise some concerns about proportionality and whether other students might now feel intimidated or unsafe. Maya felt a flash of anger at the suggestion that she was somehow the one making other students unsafe. I never hurt anyone who didn't attack me first, she said, her voice steady despite the emotions churning inside her. I've been training in judo for years, but I've never used it at school before because my father taught me it should only be used as a last resort. And I respect that restraint, Maya, Principal Williams said. But the reality is that your video has now been viewed over 50,000 times across various social media platforms. We've received calls from parents, from school board members, and from local media outlets. Some people are calling you a hero for standing up to bullying, while others are expressing concern about violence in our schools. He pulled out a folder, thick with printed emails and documents. Jessica's family has retained a lawyer and is considering pressing charges for assault. They're also demanding that you be expelled from Riverside High as a danger to other students. On the other hand, we've received dozens of messages supporting you, including from parents who say their own children have been bullied by Jessica and her friends. Maya's stomach dropped at the mention of criminal charges. She had defended herself from an unprovoked attack, but the legal system might not see it that way, especially given the Martinez family's resources and connections. The thought of being arrested, of having a criminal record that would follow her for the rest of her life, was terrifying beyond words. What are you recommending? Linda asked, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Principal Williams sighed heavily. Given the complexity of the situation and the public attention it's receiving, I'm recommending a 3-day suspension for both Maya and Jessica. This gives us time to let emotions cool down and to work with both families on a resolution that protects everyone involved. 3 days? Maya said, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. She tore my clothes off in front of everyone, humiliated me, and attacked me, and we get the same punishment? I understand your frustration, Maya, but this is about more than just punishment. It's about managing a situation that has escalated far beyond a typical school disciplinary issue. The suspension is officially for mutual combat, which acknowledges that while Jessica was the initial aggressor, both students engaged in physical altercation. Linda stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is not justice. My daughter was attacked and defended herself, and now you punish her equally with her attacker because her family has money and lawyers. Mrs. Chen, I assure you that our decision is not based on any family's financial status, Principal Williams replied, though his tone suggested he understood exactly how the situation appeared. We're trying to find a solution that allows Maya to continue her education here while addressing the legitimate concerns that have been raised. Maya felt the weight of injustice settling on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. She had finally stood up for herself, had refused to be victimized, and now she was being punished for that courage. The message was clear. It didn't matter if you were in the right if the other person had more power and influence than you did. What about the students who recorded everything and spread it online? Maya asked. What about Ashley and Madison, who helped Jessica attack me? Are they being suspended too? We're addressing those issues separately, the principal said evasively. Right now, our focus is on resolving the primary conflict between you and Jessica. As they left the principal's office, Maya felt hollow and defeated. The 3-day suspension would be noted in her permanent record, potentially affecting her college applications and scholarship opportunities. More importantly, The message to every student at Riverside High would be that standing up to bullies would result in punishment, while having wealthy parents would protect you from the consequences of your actions. The hallways of Riverside High felt hostile as Maya collected her books from her locker under the watchful eyes of a security guard who had been assigned to escort her off campus. Students stared and whispered, some offering subtle gestures of support while others looked at her with suspicion or fear. The delicate social ecosystem of the school had been disrupted, and Maya was being treated as the primary source of that disruption rather than as its victim. Alex Kim appeared at Maya's side as she walked toward the exit, his face flushed with anger. "This is complete garbage," he said, his voice low but intense. "Everyone knows Jessica started it, but she gets to play victim because her dad has connections. It's not fair." "Life isn't fair," Maya replied, though the words tasted bitter in her mouth. "I should have known this would happen. People like Jessica always win in the end." "Don't say that," Alex insisted. "You inspired a lot of people by standing up to her. The video is still spreading, and most of the comments are supporting you. Jessica might have won this round, but she's lost her reputation. Everyone can see what she really is now." As Maya walked out of Riverside High, she wondered if Alex was right or if he was just trying to make her feel better. The suspension felt like a victory for bullies everywhere, a reminder that wealth and connections could overcome justice and truth. She had revealed her hidden strength, but the system had found a way to punish her for it anyway. The 3 days of suspension stretched before Maya like a prison sentence. Linda had managed to arrange time off work to stay home with her daughter, partly to provide support and partly because she was afraid of what might happen if Maya was left alone while emotions were still running high. The apartment above the laundromat felt smaller than ever as they tried to maintain normal routines while the weight of uncertainty pressed down on them. Maya threw herself into her art with renewed intensity, creating drawings that reflected her turbulent emotional state. Her sketches became darker and more complex, featuring warriors battling impossible odds and heroes standing alone against overwhelming forces. The act of drawing provided some relief from the constant anxiety about her future, but it couldn't completely silence the voice in her head that whispered she had made a terrible mistake. On Tuesday afternoon, Sensei Rodriguez appeared at their apartment door with a bag of groceries and a concerned expression. He had heard about the suspension and wanted to check on his student, but he also brought news that added another layer of complexity to Maya's situation. "There's been talk at the dojo," he said as he sat in their small living room, his weathered hands folded carefully in his lap. "Word has gotten out about your judo skills, and some people are interested in meeting you. There's a regional tournament coming up next month, and several coaches have asked if you might be interested in competing." Maya looked up from her sketchbook, surprised by this unexpected development. She had never competed officially in judo, preferring to keep her training private and separate from the rest of her life. The idea of stepping into a competitive arena felt both thrilling and terrifying. "I've never competed before," Maya said. "And after what happened at school, I'm not sure if showcasing my fighting skills is the best idea right now." "Judo competition is not fighting," Sensei Rodriguez corrected gently. "It's sport, it's art, it's discipline. Your father competed for years, and it taught him lessons about himself that he could never have learned any other way. Maybe it's time for you to discover what you're truly capable of when you're not just defending yourself." Linda listened to the conversation with mixed emotions. Part of her was proud that Maya's skills were being recognized and that new opportunities might be opening up. But another part of her worried about drawing more attention to her daughter when they were already dealing with legal threats and social media scrutiny. "Would competing help or hurt her situation at school?" Linda asked practically. Sensei Rodriguez considered the question carefully. "It would show that Maya is a disciplined athlete, not a violent troublemaker. Judo has strict codes of conduct and respect. Success in competition might change how people perceive what happened last week. That evening, Maya found herself researching judo competitions online, watching videos of young athletes demonstrating the same techniques she had used to defend herself against Jessica. The competitors moved with grace and precision, their throws executed with an artistry that elevated martial arts beyond mere violence. For the first time since the incident, Maya began to see her skills as something positive rather than as a source of problems. Wednesday brought unexpected visitors to the apartment. Tyler Davidson, the boy whose innocent comment had inadvertently triggered Jessica's attack on Maya, appeared at their door with a nervous expression and a small bouquet of flowers from the grocery store. "I wanted to apologize," he said when Maya answered the door, his voice shaky with nerves. "If I hadn't said what I said about your art at that party, none of this would have happened. Jessica only went after you because she was jealous, and it's my fault for making her jealous in the first place." Maya stared at Tyler, processing this revelation. She had never known that Jessica's attack had been motivated by romantic jealousy, rather than simple cruelty. The information added another layer of complexity to an already confusing situation. "You didn't make her do anything," Maya said finally. "Jessica chose to attack me. You're not responsible for her decisions." "But I could have handled it better," Tyler insisted. "I could have been more careful about what I said and where I said it. And I should have stood up for you when she was tearing your hoodie. I just stood there like everyone else, and I'm ashamed of that." Maya invited Tyler into the apartment, where Linda served them tea while they talked about the incident. Its aftermath. Tyler revealed that Jessica had been pressuring him to provide a statement to her lawyer, claiming that Maya had threatened him or other students, but he had refused. He also shared that several other students were being pressured to provide similar statements, though most were resisting. "Jessica's not handling this well," Tyler explained. "She's used to getting her way, and the fact that you stood up to her has really shaken her. Her friends are starting to distance themselves because they don't want to be associated with someone who attacks other students." The video made her look really bad. This information provided Maya with a glimmer of hope. If Jessica was struggling to maintain her social position and having difficulty finding supporters for her legal case, then perhaps the suspension wouldn't be the complete victory for bullying that Maya had feared it would be. Thursday morning brought the most surprising development yet. Principal Williams called to request another meeting, but this time his tone was different. When Maya and Linda arrived at his office, they found him looking more relaxed and confident than he had during their previous encounter. "I wanted to update you on some developments in your case," he began without preamble. "We've completed our investigation into the incident, and several new pieces of information have come to light that I think you should know about." He pulled out a thick folder and began laying out documents and printed screenshots on his desk. "First, we discovered that Jessica and her friends had been planning to target you for several days before the actual incident. We found text messages discussing strategies for humiliating you publicly, including specific discussions about destroying your clothing." Maya felt a chill run down her spine as she realized how deliberate and premeditated Jessica's attack had been. This wasn't a moment of impulse or teenage drama. It was a calculated assault designed to cause maximum humiliation and damage. Second, Principal Williams continued, "We've received statements from several students who witnessed previous incidents of harassment that were not reported at the time. It appears that Jessica and her friends have been engaging in a pattern of bullying behavior that goes back several months with multiple targets." Linda leaned forward, sensing that the principal was building towards something significant. "What does this mean for Maya's situation?" "It means that we're revising our assessment of what happened last Thursday," Principal Williams replied. "In light of the premeditated nature of Jessica's attack and the pattern of bullying behavior we've uncovered, we're reducing Maya's suspension to time already served and removing any reference to mutual combat from her record." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her, followed immediately by wariness. What about Jessica? What happens to her? Jessica Martinez is being suspended for the remainder of the week and will be required to undergo counseling before she can return to classes. Her family's lawyer has also informed us that they will not be pursuing criminal charges, though I suspect that decision has more to do with the evidence we've gathered than with any sudden attack of conscience. As they left the principal's office for the second time that week, Maya felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She would be able to return to school the next day with her record clear and her future intact. More importantly, the truth about Jessica's behavior was finally being acknowledged by the school administration. But Maya also understood that this resolution was just the beginning of a new chapter in her story. She had been thrust into the spotlight in a way that could never be completely undone, and she would need to decide how to use the attention and opportunities that had come with it. The quiet, invisible girl she had been was gone forever, replaced by someone stronger but also more exposed to both the benefits and dangers of being noticed. Friday morning found Maya standing at the entrance to Riverside High with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Students gathering for the start of another school day looked at her with expressions ranging from admiration to curiosity to residual fear. She was no longer anonymous, no longer safe in the shadows, but she was also no longer powerless against those who might try to harm her. As she walked through the hallways toward her first class, Maya carried herself differently than she had just a week earlier. Her posture was straighter, her steps more confident, her eyes meeting the gazes of classmates rather than avoiding them. She had discovered something about herself in that moment of crisis, something that went beyond her judo skills or her artistic talents. Maya Chen had found her voice, and she was beginning to understand that having a voice meant accepting the responsibility to use it wisely. The events of the past week had tested her in ways she had never imagined, but they had also revealed reserves of strength and courage that she was only beginning to explore. The story was far from over, but Maya was no longer the same person who had started it. She had faced down her fears, stood up to injustice, and emerged from the ordeal with her integrity intact and her future restored. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the knowledge that she was capable of far more than she had ever believed possible. The revelation that would change everything came on a rainy Saturday morning 3 weeks after Maya's return to school. She was at the community center, working through advanced throwing techniques with Sensei Rodriguez, when a woman in an expensive business suit appeared at the dojo entrance. The woman was tall and elegant, with silver-streaked hair pulled back, in a professional chignon and the kind of confident bearing that suggested she was accustomed to being the most important person in a room she entered. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight accent that Maya couldn't quite place. "I'm looking for Maya Chen. I'm Dr. Sarah Nakamura from the Pacific Northwest Judo Federation." Maya's hand stilled on her GI as she turned to face the unexpected visitor. Sensei Rodriguez straightened, clearly recognizing the name even if Maya didn't immediately understand its significance. Dr. Nakamura was a legend in the judo community, a former Olympic competitor who now served as one of the most influential coaches and administrators in the sport. "Maya," Dr. Nakamura continued, stepping into the dojo with the fluid grace of someone who had spent decades perfecting her movement. "I've been watching the video of your defensive techniques, and I have to say, I'm impressed. Your form is exceptional, particularly given that you were responding to an unexpected attack rather than executing planned techniques in a controlled environment." Maya felt her cheeks flush with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. The incident at school had been intensely personal and traumatic, and hearing it discussed in technical terms felt strange and somewhat disconnected from her emotional experience of those moments. "I understand you've never competed formally," Dr. Nakamura said, settling onto one of the benches that lined the dojo walls. "That's actually quite remarkable, given the level of skill you displayed. Your father was David Chen, wasn't he? I remember him from competitions in the early 2000s. He was a gifted athlete with tremendous potential. The mention of her father sent a jolt through Maya's chest. She had grown up hearing stories about David's competitive days, but she had never met anyone from that world who had actually known him personally. Dr. Nakamura's presence suddenly felt like a bridge to a part of her father's life that had remained mysterious and distant. "He taught me everything I know," Maya said quietly. "Even after he stopped competing, he never stopped training. And he made sure I understood that judo was about more than just throwing techniques." "He was right about that," Dr. Nakamura replied, with a warm smile. "But I suspect he also taught you things that you haven't fully discovered yet. Maya, I'd like to invite you to train with our elite development program. We work with the most promising young judoka in the region, preparing them for national and international competition." The offer hung in the air like a challenge that Maya wasn't sure she was ready to accept. Elite competition meant stepping into a world where her skills would be tested against opponents who had been training with the same intensity and dedication that she had, but who had also been competing and refining their techniques against increasingly difficult challenges. Sensei Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression serious. "Dr. Nakamura, Maya has tremendous potential, but she's also dealing with some difficult circumstances at school and at home. Elite training is demanding, and I want to make sure she's ready for that level of commitment." "I understand the concerns," Dr. Nakamura said, turning to address both Maya and her longtime instructor. "But I also believe that Maya's recent experiences have given her something that many young athletes lack: real-world understanding of when and how to apply her skills under pressure. That's not something that can be taught in a dojo or learned through competition alone." Maya's mind raced as she considered the implications of this unexpected opportunity. Elite judo training would mean traveling to competitions, working with world-class coaches, and potentially earning recognition that could open doors to college scholarships and even Olympic development programs. But it would also mean increased scrutiny, more pressure, and the risk of failure on a much larger stage. "I need to talk to my mother," Maya said finally. "This is a big decision, and she's already worried about how the attention from the school incident might affect my future." "Of course," Dr. Nakamura replied, pulling a business card from her jacket pocket. "Take all the time you need. But Maya, I want you to understand something important. What happened at your school wasn't just about self-defense or standing up to bullies. It was about a young woman discovering her own strength and refusing to be diminished by others. That kind of courage and self-possession is exactly what we look for in elite athletes." That evening, Maya sat at the kitchen table with Linda, describing her encounter with Dr. Nakamura and the invitation to join the elite training program. Linda listened carefully, asking practical questions about time commitments, travel requirements, and costs while Maya tried to convey the magnitude of the opportunity being offered. "Your father always dreamed that you might compete at the highest levels," Linda said finally, her voice soft with memory. "He used to watch Olympic judo and tell me that you had the same natural instincts as the champions. But he also worried about the pressure and the sacrifices that elite competition requires." Maya reached across the table to take her mother's hand. "I know this would mean more expenses and time away from home. But Dr. Nakamura mentioned that elite athletes often receive sponsorship opportunities and scholarship assistance. This could actually help our financial situation rather than making it worse." Linda was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the neon sign of the Chinese restaurant across the street. "When your father died, I thought his dreams died with him. I focused on survival, on making sure we could pay rent and buy groceries and plan for your education. I never imagined that his legacy might still have something to offer us. So you think I should do it?" Maya asked, hope and anxiety warring in her voice. "I think you should explore the opportunity," Linda replied carefully. Talk to Dr. Nakamura about the details, visit the training facility, meet the other athletes. But Maya, remember that this decision isn't just about judo. It's about what kind of person you want to become and what kind of life you want to build. Monday morning brought Maya back to a Riverside High that felt fundamentally different than the school she had attended just a month earlier. The hallways no longer seemed like hostile territory to be navigated carefully, but rather like just another environment where she could move with confidence and purpose. Students still recognized her, but the attention had shifted from shock and speculation to something more like respect and curiosity. Jessica Martinez had returned to school the previous week, but her social position had been dramatically altered by the events of that Thursday in the hallway. The video of her attack on Maya had continued circulating, and while some students remained loyal to her, many others had been disturbed by the premeditated cruelty it revealed. Her influence was diminished, her confidence shaken, and her friends more cautious about being associated with behavior that could reflect badly on their own reputations. Maya found that she no longer feared encountering Jessica in the hallways or cafeteria. The physical confrontation had resolved something fundamental between them, establishing a new equilibrium that neither girl was eager to disturb. They didn't speak when their paths crossed, but there was an understanding that the conflict had been settled in the most definitive way possible. Tyler Davidson had become a more regular presence in Maya's life, seeking her out between classes to discuss art, martial arts, and their shared chemistry assignments. His initial attraction to her artwork had deepened into genuine appreciation for her intelligence and character, while Maya found herself enjoying the company of someone who saw her as more than just the quiet girl who had shocked everyone with her hidden abilities. "Have you decided about the judo training opportunity?" Tyler asked as they walked together toward the cafeteria. Maya had told him about Dr. Nakamura's visit and the invitation to join the elite program, and he had been enthusiastically supportive of the possibility. "I'm going to visit the training facility this weekend," Maya replied. "Dr. Nakamura arranged for me to observe a practice session and meet some of the other athletes. I'm nervous about it, but also excited." "You should be excited," Tyler said earnestly. "You have this incredible talent that most people never even get to see, and now you have a chance to develop it at the highest level. It's like you've been hiding a superpower, and someone finally noticed." Alex Kim joined them as they entered the cafeteria, his laptop bag slung over his shoulder and his face bright with excitement. "Maya, you have to see this," he said, pulling out his phone and showing her a news article. "The video of your judo throws made it onto a national martial arts blog. They're calling you the Quiet Storm and talking about how your defensive techniques could be used as teaching examples in self-defense classes." Maya read the article with amazement, seeing herself described as an inspiration to young people who had been bullied, and a demonstration of how proper martial arts training could provide confidence and protection without promoting aggression. The writer praised her restraint in only using the minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat and her calm demeanor throughout the confrontation. "This is surreal," Maya said, handing the phone back to Alex. "A month ago, I was invisible. And now people I've never met are writing articles about me and giving me nicknames." "Fame is weird," Tyler agreed. "But you're handling it better than most people would. You haven't let it change who you are or how you treat people." The weekend visit to the Pacific Northwest Judo Federation's training facility opened Maya's eyes to possibilities she had never seriously considered. The dojo was state-of-the-art, with professional-grade mats, video analysis equipment, and strength training facilities that made the community center where she had learned the basics look humble by comparison. Maya watched elite athletes working through techniques with a precision and power that took her breath away. These were young men and women who had dedicated their lives to perfecting their craft, and their movements had a quality that went beyond mere technical proficiency into something approaching artistry. Dr. Nakamura introduced Maya to several Athletes close to her own age, including Emma Rodriguez, a 18-year-old who had already competed at international junior championships and was being considered for Olympic development programs. Emma was friendly and encouraging, sharing stories about her own journey from local competitions to national recognition. "The hardest part isn't the physical training," Emma explained as they sat together watching other athletes practice. "It's learning to handle the pressure and expectations. When you're competing at this level, everyone has good technique. What separates winners from losers is mental strength and the ability to perform when everything is on the line." Maya found herself drawn to the intensity and focus of the elite training environment. The athletes pushed each other to excel, while maintaining the respect and discipline that were fundamental to judo philosophy. This was what her father had experienced during his competitive years, the camaraderie and shared pursuit of excellence that had shaped his character and his approach to life. "What do you think?" Dr. Nakamura asked as Maya prepared to leave the facility. "Do you feel ready to take the next step?" Maya looked around the dojo one more time, imagining herself training alongside these dedicated athletes and pursuing goals that had seemed impossible just a few weeks earlier. "I think I am," she said, surprised by the certainty in her own voice. "I want to see how far I can go." The announcement of Maya's acceptance into the elite training program created another wave of attention at Riverside High, but this time the focus was largely positive. Local media outlets picked up the story, framing it as an inspiring tale of a young woman who had overcome adversity to earn recognition for her athletic talents. The article in the Millbrook Herald featured a photo of Maya in her GI, executing a perfect throw under Sensei Rodriguez's guidance. The headline read, "Local student earns elite athletic opportunity after viral self-defense video," and the story emphasized her academic achievements alongside her martial arts accomplishments. Principal Williams called Maya into his office again, but this time it was to congratulate her on the opportunity and to discuss how the school could support her training schedule. The conversation was warm and encouraging, a stark contrast to their earlier meetings about disciplinary action. "I have to admit, Maya, when this all started, I was worried about how it would affect our school's reputation," Principal Williams sighed, "but you've turned a difficult situation into something genuinely inspiring. You've shown that standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean becoming someone you're not." Maya's art teacher, Mrs. Patterson, also approached her about entering some of her drawings in a regional high school art competition. The attention from the judo story had led people to discover Maya's artistic talents as well, and several of her pieces had gained recognition on social media platforms dedicated to young artists. "You have multiple gifts, Maya," Mrs. Patterson explained. "Don't let success in one area prevent you from developing the others. The discipline and focus you've learned through martial arts will actually help you grow as an artist too." The regional judo tournament that Dr. Nakamura had mentioned months earlier was now approaching, and Maya found herself entered in the junior division as her first official competition. The weeks leading up to the event were intense, with additional training sessions, dietary adjustments, and mental preparation that challenged her in ways she had never experienced. Sensei Rodriguez remained her primary instructor, but he now coordinated with Dr. Nakamura and the Federation coaches to ensure that Maya's training incorporated the advanced techniques and strategies used in elite competition. The community Center Dojo hosted evening sessions where Maya worked with visiting coaches who specialized in competition preparation. Linda had initially worried about the time and energy demands of elite training, but she quickly became Maya's most enthusiastic supporter. She rearranged her work schedule to attend training sessions when possible and spent her evenings researching judo nutrition and recovery techniques to support her daughter's athletic development. "Your father would be so proud," Linda said one evening as she watched Maya practice visualization techniques in their living room. "Not just because you're succeeding, but because you're doing it with integrity and respect for others." The week before the tournament, Maya received an unexpected visit from Jessica Martinez. Maya was leaving the school library when she found Jessica waiting by the front entrance, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled and her confident demeanor replaced by something that looked almost like vulnerability. "Maya," Jessica said, her voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "Can we talk?" Maya paused, studying her former tormentor's face for signs of hostility or deception. But what she saw instead was genuine nervousness and what might have been remorse. "What do you want to talk about?" Maya asked, keeping her tone neutral. "I wanted to apologize," Jessica said, the words seeming to cost her considerable effort. "What I did to you was wrong, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I was jealous and insecure, and I took it out on you in a way that was cruel and unfair." Maya felt a mixture of surprise and skepticism. This was not the Jessica Martinez she had known for 3 years, the confident queen bee who seemed incapable of admitting weakness or acknowledging mistakes. "Why now?" Maya asked. "Why? Are you telling me this?" Jessica looked down at her hands, which were clasped tightly together. "Because I've watched how you've handled everything that happened after our fight. You could have used your newfound popularity to get revenge on me or to make my life miserable, but you didn't. You just focused on moving forward and building something positive from a terrible situation." "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Maya said quietly. "I just wanted to be left alone to do my own thing." "I know that now," Jessica replied. "And I realized that I was the one who was truly weak in that situation. I was so threatened by your talent and your authenticity that I tried to tear you down instead of dealing with my own insecurities." Maya studied Jessica's face, seeing something she had never noticed before: genuine pain and self-awareness. The confrontation had been as transformative for Jessica as it had been for Maya, forcing her to confront aspects of her own character that she had preferred to ignore. "I accept your apology," Maya said finally. "But I also hope you understand that what happened between us changed both of our lives. I can't go back to being invisible, and you can't go back to thinking that your popularity gives you the right to hurt other people." "I understand," Jessica said. "And Maya, good luck at your tournament. I've been reading about your training, and I think it's amazing what you're accomplishing." As Jessica walked away, Maya felt a sense of closure that she hadn't realized she needed. The confrontation that had started everything had been resolved, not just through physical victory, but through genuine understanding and mutual recognition of each other's humanity. The tournament weekend arrived with a mixture of excitement and nervous energy that Maya had never experienced before. The competition was being held at a large sports complex in Portland, with athletes from throughout the Pacific Northwest gathered to test their skills against the best in their divisions. Maya's first official judo competition was unlike anything she had experienced in training. The formal atmosphere, the judges, the spectators, and the knowledge that every technique would be evaluated and scored created a level of pressure that required all of her mental preparation to manage effectively. Linda and Sensei Rodriguez sat in the stands, their faces tense with nervous excitement as Maya took the mat for her first match. Her opponent was a girl from Seattle who had been competing for 3 years and was considered one of the favorites in their division. As the referee called Hajime to begin the match, Maya felt a familiar calm descend over her mind. This was what her father had trained her for, what all those hours of practice and discipline had been building toward. She moved with the fluid grace that had become her signature, reading her opponent's intentions and responding with techniques that seemed to flow naturally from her body's understanding of balance and leverage. The match lasted just over 2 minutes, ending when Maya executed a perfectly timed hare goshi sweeping hip throw that sent her opponent flying through the air to land cleanly on her back. The technique scored ippon, the equivalent of a knockout in boxing, and ended the match immediately. Maya went on to win her division, defeating 4 opponents with a combination of technical skill and tactical intelligence that impressed the coaches and spectators in attendance. Dr. Nakamura was beaming with pride as she placed the gold medal around Maya's neck, and Linda was crying tears of joy from her seat in the stands. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Nakamura said as Maya stood on the podium with her medal. "You have the potential to compete at national and international levels, but more importantly, you've shown that you have the character and mental strength to handle success with grace and humility." The drive back to Millbrook was filled with celebration and planning for Maya's continued development as an elite athlete. She would be traveling to competitions throughout the region, working with specialized coaches and pursuing goals that had seemed impossible just a few months earlier. But as they passed the familiar landmarks of her small hometown, Maya also felt a deep appreciation for the journey that had brought her to this point. The quiet girl who had hidden in oversized hoodies was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more confident, and more willing to embrace both challenges and opportunities. Monday morning at Riverside High brought congratulations from classmates and teachers who had followed Maya's tournament success through local media coverage. The school had displayed her medal in the trophy case near the main office, alongside achievements by other student athletes who had brought recognition to their community. Tyler was waiting at Maya's locker with a bouquet of flowers and a grin that seemed to light up the entire hallway. "I watched the live stream of your tournament," he said. "You were incredible. I've never seen anything like those throws you were doing." Alex Kim had created a digital scrapbook of Maya's journey from the viral video to her tournament victory, documenting her transformation with photos, articles, and social media posts that showed how much her life had changed in just a few months. "You've become like a local celebrity," Alex said, showing Maya the collection on his laptop. "But the coolest part is that you're still the same person you always were, just more confident and willing to let people see who you really are." Maya looked around the hallway that had once felt like hostile territory, seeing it now as just another place where she could move with confidence and purpose. The students who had once ignored her now offered respectful greetings, while those who had feared her after the confrontation with Jessica seemed to understand that her strength was disciplined and controlled rather than aggressive or dangerous. Principal Williams approached as Maya was gathering her books for first period. "Maya, I wanted to let you know that we've received inquiries from several colleges about your academic and athletic achievements. Your combination of artistic talent, academic excellence, and judo success is quite unique, and I think you're going to have some very interesting opportunities to consider." As Maya walked toward her first class, she reflected on the unexpected path that had brought her to this point. The confrontation with Jessica had been traumatic and frightening, but it had also revealed reserves of strength and courage that she had never known she possessed. She was no longer the invisible girl who hid in the shadows, but she was also not defined solely by her martial arts abilities or her viral fame. Maya Chen had become someone who could stand up for herself and others when necessary, while also pursuing her artistic passions and academic goals with the same discipline and determination that characterized her judo training. The future stretched ahead with possibilities that seemed limitless: college scholarships, international competitions, artistic recognition, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than fear or intimidation. Maya had discovered that true strength came not from the ability to defeat others, but from the courage to be authentic and the wisdom to use her abilities in service of justice and personal growth. As she settled into her seat for chemistry class, Maya caught Tyler's eye and smiled, remembering the boy whose innocent comment about her artwork had inadvertently started this entire journey. Sometimes the most important changes in life began with the smallest, most unexpected moments, and Maya was grateful for every step that had brought her to this new understanding of who she was and who she could become. The quiet storm had found her voice, and she was ready to use it to build a future worthy of her father's legacy and her own limitless potential. 6 months after her tournament victory, Maya Chen stood in the doorway of the newly renovated art studio at Riverside High, watching sunlight stream through large windows that the school had installed as part of their expanded arts program. The space hummed with creative energy as students worked on paintings, sculptures, and digital designs that would have been impossible in the cramped classroom that had served as the art room just a year earlier. Maya's tournament success and the media attention surrounding her story had brought unexpected benefits to the entire school community, including grant funding for facility improvements and program expansions. Mrs. Patterson approached with warm smile, carrying a portfolio filled with Maya's latest artwork. The admissions committee at Portland Art Institute specifically requested to see more of your mixed media pieces, she said, opening the folder to reveal drawings that combined traditional manga-style characters with dynamic action sequences. Inspired by Maya's judo training, they're particularly interested in how you've integrated your athletic experiences into your artistic expression. Maya studied the drawings with critical eyes, seeing technical improvements that reflected months of dedicated practice alongside her judo training. The discipline required for elite athletic competition had enhanced her artistic focus in unexpected ways, teaching her patience and attention to detail that elevated her work beyond simple talent into something approaching mastery. I never imagined that judo and art would complement each other so well, Maya admitted, tracing the lines of a particularly complex piece that showed a female warrior executing a perfect throw while surrounded by swirling energy patterns. The physical understanding of movement and balance has changed how I approach dynamic compositions. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Nakamura, who had become a regular presence at Riverside High since Maya's acceptance into the elite training program. Today she carried herself with the particular energy that Maya had learned to associate with important announcements. Maya, I have news that I think will interest you, Dr. Nakamura said, settling into one of the student desks with the easy familiarity of someone who had spent decades working with young athletes. The United States Olympic Training Center has invited you to participate in their summer development camp. This is an extraordinary opportunity for someone with your limited competition experience. Maya felt her heart skip as she processed the implications of this invitation. The Olympic Training Center represented the pinnacle of American judo development, where the nation's most promising athletes worked with world-class coaches and support staff to prepare for international competition. To be invited at 17, with less than a year of formal competition experience, was almost unprecedented. What would that involve? Maya asked, her mind already racing through the logistics and potential complications. 6 weeks in Colorado Springs, training alongside junior national team members and working with coaches who have developed Olympic medalists, Dr. Nakamura explained. The program includes technical training, physical conditioning, sports psychology, and exposure to international competition styles. It's intensive, demanding, and potentially life-changing. Mrs. Patterson looked up from the portfolio with excitement and concern warring in her expression. That sounds incredible, Maya. But what about your college applications and your art portfolio development? This is a crucial time for academic planning. Actually, Dr. Nakamura said with a knowing smile, the Olympic Training Center has partnerships with several universities that offer combined athletic and academic programs for elite athletes. Maya could potentially pursue her artistic education while continuing to develop as a judoka at the highest levels. Maya's mind whirled with possibilities that seemed almost too good to be true. For months, she had been struggling with the assumption that she would eventually need to choose between her artistic ambitions and her athletic potential. The idea that she might be able to pursue both passions simultaneously felt like discovering that she could fly. That evening, Maya sat with Linda at their kitchen table, spreading out brochures and information packets about the Olympic Training Center program. The apartment felt different now, less cramped and desperate, partly because Maya's tournament successes had brought modest sponsorship opportunities that had eased their financial pressures. "This is what your father dreamed of," Linda said softly, her fingers tracing the Olympic Rings logo on one of the brochures. "He used to talk about what it would be like to see you compete at the highest levels, to represent our country in international competition." Maya reached across the table to take her mother's hand. "Are you okay with me being away for 6 weeks? I know it's a long time, and I worry about leaving you alone here." Linda's eyes brightened with tears, but her smile was radiant. "Maya, I've spent the last 4 years working to give you opportunities that I never had. If you don't take this chance, then all of that sacrifice was meaningless. Besides," she added with a laugh, "I've been so busy managing your interview requests and sponsorship meetings that I barely have time to miss you when you're at training now." The truth was that Maya's story had resonated far beyond the judo community. Her combination of academic excellence, artistic talent, and athletic achievement had made her a sought-after speaker for youth groups, martial arts organizations, and anti-bullying campaigns. The girl who had once been invisible was now receiving invitations to share her experiences at conferences and events throughout the Pacific Northwest. Alex Kim had appointed himself as Maya's unofficial social media manager, creating professional-looking content that showcased her artwork alongside her judo training. His technical skills had helped Maya build an online presence that attracted followers interested in both her athletic journey and her artistic development. "You need to see this," Alex said, appearing at Maya's locker the next morning with his laptop open to a news article. "Sports Illustrated is doing a feature on young athletes to watch for the next Olympics, and you're on the list." Maya read the article with amazement, seeing herself described as a martial arts prodigy whose viral self-defense video revealed exceptional judo skills that have quickly propelled her into elite competition. The piece included quotes from Dr. Nakamura and other coaches predicting that Maya could be a contender for Olympic selection within the next 4 years. "This is surreal," Maya said, closing the laptop and leaning against her locker. "A year ago, I was trying to be invisible. And now people are writing about me in national magazines." Tyler Davidson appeared beside them, carrying the chemistry textbook that had started this entire journey when Jessica had torn it from Maya's hands that day in the hallway. Their relationship had evolved into something deeper than friendship, built on mutual respect and shared interests that went beyond physical attraction. "Have you decided about the Olympic Training Center?" Tyler asked, his voice carefully neutral despite the obvious concern in his eyes. Maya's success was opening doors to opportunities that would take her far from Millbrook, and everyone who cared about her was struggling with the conflicting emotions of pride and loss. "I think I have to go," Maya said, the words feeling both thrilling and terrifying as she spoke them aloud. "This chance might never come again, and I owe it to myself and to my father's memory to see how far I can push my abilities." The announcement of Maya's acceptance into the Olympic Training Center program created another wave of local media attention. The Millbrook Herald ran a front-page story with the headline "Local Teen Earns Olympic Development Opportunity," featuring a photo of Maya and her team, U.S. training gear that Dr. Nakamura had provided for her recent competitions. Principal Williams organized a school assembly to recognize Maya's achievements and to celebrate what he called an extraordinary example of how adversity can be transformed into opportunity. Maya found herself standing on the same stage where Jessica had once tried to humiliate her with fabricated accusations, but now she was receiving a standing ovation from students and faculty who genuinely respected her accomplishments. "Maya Chen represents the best of what Riverside High can produce," Principal Williams said as Maya stood beside him, holding a plaque commemorating her selection for the Olympic Development Program. "She shows us that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from developing our own potential and using our abilities to inspire and protect our community. The irony was not lost on Maya that Jessica Martinez sat in the third row of the auditorium, applauding along with everyone else. Their relationship had evolved into something approaching mutual respect, built on the understanding that their conflict had been transformative for both of them. Jessica had used the humiliation of her defeat to examine her own behavior and motivations, eventually emerging as a more thoughtful and empathetic person. After the assembly, Jessica approached Maya near the gymnasium entrance, her expression serious but not hostile. "I wanted to wish you luck at the Olympic Training Center," she said, her voice lacking any trace of the cruel superiority that had once characterized her interactions with Maya. "Thank you," Maya replied, studying Jessica's face and seeing genuine sincerity there. "I hope things continue to go well for you too." "They are," Jessica said with a small smile. "I've been working with the school counselor on some things. And I've started volunteering with a program that helps younger students deal with bullying. Turns out that understanding why I was cruel to others has helped me figure out how to prevent other people from making the same mistakes." Maya nodded, recognizing the courage it must have taken for Jessica to acknowledge her past behavior and work actively to make amends for it. "That sounds like important work." "It is," Jessica agreed. "And Maya? What you did that day in the hallway didn't just change your life. It changed mine too, and probably for the better." As Jessica walked away, Maya reflected on the unexpected ways that single moments of crisis could reshape multiple lives. Her decision to stand up for herself had not only revealed her own hidden strength, but had also forced everyone around her to examine their own values and choices. The weeks leading up to Maya's departure for Colorado Springs were filled with intensive preparation that went far beyond physical training. Dr. Nakamura arranged for Maya to work with a sports psychologist who specialized in helping young athletes manage the pressures and expectations that came with elite competition. The mental aspects of high-level competition are just as important as the physical techniques, Dr. Elena Vasquez explained during one of their sessions. "You've already demonstrated exceptional mental strength by maintaining your composure during crisis situations, but Olympic-level competition presents different challenges that require specific preparation." Maya learned visualization techniques that helped her mentally rehearse complex throwing sequences in competition scenarios. She practiced managing pre-competition nerves and maintaining focus during extended training sessions that simulated the intensity of international tournaments. The physical preparation was equally demanding. Maya's training schedule now included strength and conditioning work that complemented her technical judo practice, along with flexibility and injury prevention routines that would be crucial during the intensive Olympic Training Center program. Sensei Rodriguez remained her primary technical instructor, but he now worked closely with specialists who provided expertise in areas like competition strategy and international rulebook interpretations. The small community-centered dojo had become the hub of a sophisticated training operation that attracted attention from coaches and athletes throughout the region. "Your father would be amazed to see what's happening here," Sensei Rodriguez told Maya one evening as they finished a particularly challenging training session. "When he first brought you to this dojo, you were a shy 8-year-old who could barely tie her belt correctly. Now you're preparing to train with the best athletes in the country." Maya looked around the dojo that had been her second home for nearly a decade, seeing it now with eyes that appreciated both its humble origins and its role in launching her toward possibilities she had never imagined. "I'll always remember where I started," she said. "No matter how far this journey takes me, this place will always be where I learned what judo really means." The farewell dinner that Linda organized for Maya's last night in Millbrook brought together everyone who had played a significant role in her journey. Tyler, Alex, Mrs. Patterson, Sensei Rodriguez, Dr. Nakamura, and even Principal Williams gathered in the small apartment above the laundromat to celebrate Maya's achievements and wish her well for the challenges ahead. To Maya, Tyler said, raising his glass of sparkling cider in a toast, for showing us that quiet strength can be the most powerful force of all. The evening was filled with stories, laughter, and promises to stay in touch despite the distances that Maya's opportunities would create. Alex presented her with a professionally bound book containing all of her artwork from the past year, while Mrs. Patterson gave her a set of high-quality art supplies for continuing her creative work. During training breaks, Dr. Nakamura's gift was practical but deeply meaningful, a GI that had belonged to an Olympic champion from Japan, passed down through generations of elite athletes who had worn it for luck during their most important competitions. This carries the spirit of champions who came before you, Dr. Nakamura explained as Maya held the carefully preserved garment. Wear it when you need to remember that you belong among the world's best athletes. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Maya found herself alone with Linda in the kitchen, where they had shared so many meals and conversations over the years. The small space felt heavy with unspoken emotions as both women struggled with the reality of their impending separation. "I'm proud of you beyond words," Linda said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "Your father always said that you had something special inside you, but even he couldn't have imagined how far you would go." Maya embraced her mother, feeling the strength and sacrifice that had made this moment possible. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. Every opportunity I've had came from the foundation you built for us after Dad died. And now you're building something even greater," Linda replied, pulling back to look at her daughter with eyes bright with tears and pride. "Go show the world what Maya Chen can accomplish." The flight to Colorado Springs the next morning marked the beginning of a new chapter in Maya's life that would test everything she had learned about herself over the past year. As the plane lifted off from Portland International Airport, Maya looked down at the familiar landscape of the Pacific Northwest, knowing that she was leaving behind not just a place but also a version of herself that could never exist again. The Olympic Training Center sprawled across a high-altitude campus that buzzed with the focused energy of athletes pursuing excellence at the highest levels. Maya's first glimpse of the judo training facility took her breath away. Professional grade mats, video analysis systems, and strength training equipment that represented the cutting edge of sports science and athlete development. Her fellow trainees came from across the United States and included junior national champions, international medalists, and rising stars who had been identified as potential Olympic contenders. The diversity of backgrounds and experiences was intimidating at first, but Maya quickly discovered that her unique journey from viral video to elite competition had earned her respect among athletes who understood the dedication required to reach this level. "You're the girl from the school video, right?" asked Sarah Chun, a 19-year-old from California who had won bronze at the Junior World Championships. "I saw the footage of your throws, and they were textbook perfect. Your technical foundation is incredible for someone with so little competition experience." Maya found herself assigned to a training group that included athletes with varying levels of international experience, all working toward the common goal of representing the United States in future Olympic competition. The daily schedule was rigorous, beginning with morning conditioning sessions and continuing through technical training, video analysis, and mental performance workshops. Coach Michael Torres, a former Olympic silver medalist who now served as head coach for the junior development program, took particular interest in Maya's progress. During her first week, he spent extra time analyzing her competition footage and identifying areas where her natural abilities could be refined for international level competition. "You have instincts that can't be taught," Coach Torres told Maya during a one-on-one technical session. "Your timing and distance management are exceptional, and your ability to remain calm under pressure is rare in athletes your age. What we need to work on is adapting your techniques for competitors who will be stronger, faster, and more experienced than anyone you've faced so far. The training sessions were unlike anything Maya had experienced, even during her most intensive preparation with Dr. Nakamura and Sensei Rodriguez. Every technique was broken down into its component parts, analyzed through video replay, and refined through countless repetitions that built muscle memory at a level that transcended conscious thought. Maya's artistic background proved unexpectedly valuable in this environment. Her ability to visualize complex movements and her attention to detail helped her absorb technical corrections more quickly than many of her training partners. The coaches noted that she approached judo with the same creative problem-solving mindset that she brought to her artwork. Art and sport aren't as different as people think, Maya explained to Sarah during the break between training sessions. Both require you to see possibilities that others might miss, and to execute your vision with precision and authenticity. The mental performance workshops introduced Maya to psychological techniques that went far beyond what she had learned with Dr. Vasquez, sports psychologist at the Olympic Training Center. Worked with athletes on managing performance anxiety, maintaining confidence during losing streaks, and developing the mental resilience required for years of high-level competition. Maya learned that elite competition was as much about mental strength as physical ability. Athletes at this level possessed similar technical skills and physical capabilities. What separated champions from competitors was the ability to perform optimally when everything was on the line. Olympic competition is about who can execute their best techniques when they're exhausted, under pressure, and facing opponents who are equally skilled, explained Dr. James Kim, the center's lead sports psychologist. The mental training we do here is designed to prepare you for those moments when physical preparation alone isn't enough. As the weeks passed, Maya found herself adapting to the rhythm and culture of elite athletic training. Her days were structured around optimization, optimal nutrition, optimal recovery, optimal technical development, and optimal mental preparation. Every aspect of her life was designed to support her athletic development, creating an environment where improvement was not just possible, but inevitable. The other athletes became her closest friends and fiercest training partners. They pushed each other through grueling conditioning sessions, celebrated technical breakthroughs, and provided emotional support during moments of doubt and frustration. Maya discovered that elite athletes formed bonds that went beyond typical friendships, united by their shared commitment to pursuing excellence regardless of the sacrifices required. Video calls with Linda, Tyler, and Alex provided connection to her life in Millbrook, but Maya increasingly felt that she was becoming someone new, shaped by experiences that were difficult to communicate to people who hadn't lived them. Girl who had hidden in oversized hoodies seemed like a character from someone else's story, replaced by an athlete who belonged among the world's best competitors. 3 weeks into the program, Maya received news that would test her newfound confidence in ways she hadn't anticipated. Coach Torres called her into his office with an expression that suggested important developments. "Maya, we've received an invitation for you to compete in an international tournament in Germany next month," he said, settling behind his desk with a folder of documents. "This would be your first competition against world-class junior athletes from Europe and Asia. It's an opportunity to see how your skills translate to the international stage." Maya felt excitement and terror in equal measure. International competition represented the next level of her athletic development, but it also meant facing opponents who had been training at elite levels for years longer than she had. "Do you think I'm ready?" Maya asked, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt despite her progress during the training camp. "Readiness is relative," Coach Torres replied with a slight smile. "You'll never feel completely ready for your first international competition, but your technical skills and mental preparation are as good as any athlete your age that I've worked with. The question isn't whether you're ready, it's whether you're willing to find out what you're capable of when tested at the highest level." Maya thought about her father's teachings about courage and the importance of testing yourself against challenges that seemed beyond your capabilities. She thought about the moment in the Riverside High hallway when she had decided to stop being a victim and start being someone who fought for herself and her dignity. "I want to compete," Maya said, the words feeling both terrifying and inevitable. "I need to know how far I can go." The remaining weeks of the training camp were focused on preparing Maya for international competition. Her technical training became more specific, targeting the throwing combinations and defensive strategies that would be most effective against European and Asian competition styles. Maya also worked intensively with the sports psychology team on managing the additional pressures that came with representing her country in international competition. The weight of expectations, media attention, and national pride created psychological challenges that went beyond individual athletic performance. As the training camp concluded, Maya reflected on the transformation she had undergone during her 6 weeks in Colorado Springs. She had arrived as a talented young athlete with limited competition experience. She was leaving as someone who belonged among the world's elite junior competitors. The farewell ceremony for the training camp participants included presentations from Olympic champions and Paralympic medalists, who shared their experiences and offered encouragement for the young athlete's continued development. Maya received a special recognition for her rapid progress and her potential for future international success. "Maya Chen represents everything that makes American judo special," said Coach Torres during the ceremony. "She combines technical excellence with mental toughness and the kind of authentic character that makes athletes into champions and role models." As Maya prepared to return to Millbrook for a brief visit before departing for Germany, she carried with her not just improved technical skills and enhanced physical conditioning, but a fundamentally changed understanding of her own potential and place in the world of elite athletics. The quiet girl who had once hidden in the shadows was gone, replaced by someone who belonged on the world's biggest stages. Maya Chen had found her voice, discovered her strength, and embraced a future that promised challenges and opportunities beyond anything she had once dared to imagine. The journey from victim to champion was complete, but Maya understood that in many ways, her story was just beginning. The Olympic Training Center had prepared her not just for international competition, but for a life dedicated to pursuing excellence while inspiring others to discover their own hidden strength and potential. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.